I only have one message to give you. I don't care what you think of me. I don't care what you call me. I do care what you do with this information because it is important to our survival as a species.
If you guys have been following me for any length of time, you know I think this coronavirus is bullshit. I think it's not about a virus, it's about control, and it's about the New World Order. It's about implementing a digital currency. Everything's trackable, blah, blah, blah. Right? It's so obvious. If you don't see it by now, you're retarded. Here's why this article is so important. Federal Reserve Bank reveals details of digital dollar research. Right? So they're basically trying to, develop a dollar to improve the US payment sector, which has been damaged by COVID. Speaking in a keynote address on September 23rd, Loretta Mester emphasized that the Federal Reserve has been exploring central bank digital currencies since before the pandemic, of course, noting that its Board of Governors has been building and testing a range of distributed ledger platforms to understand their potential benefits and trade-offs, and they've been working with, MIT and a bunch of other groups to get this done. Despite the ongoing research, Mester asserted that the initiatives do not signal any decision by the Federal Reserve to adopt such a currency. Bullshit. They will, and they're doing it. Adding that issues related to financial stability, market structure, security, privacy, and monetary policy all need to be better understood. No, it doesn't. They're going to do it. Get ready for it, if you're even alive to experience it. Mester noted that the COVID pandemic has resulted in significant disruptions to crucial infrastructure of the U.S., such as the payment sector, and has resulted in major changes to the patterns and volume of domestic transfers. The spread of COVID-19 heightened the reliance of businesses and individuals on digital services and faster connectivity, as many employees began to work from home and consumers turned to online shopping. So, of course, right, they gave you the problem, which is COVID, and then the solution to that problem was a reaction to that problem was a lockdown and destroying the economy and shutting down small businesses and all this and that for a disease that hasn't killed 10,000 people according to the CDC. So that was the plan, and that's what they did. And now the solution is to introduce a digital currency, right? The Federal Reserve is not part of our government. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation owned by the Rothschilds. It is not part of our US government, right? So here's an article off Zero Hedge, right? It's entitled, JP Morgan to pay record $1 billion settlement over precious metals treasury manipulation. JP Morgan is one of the two biggest banks in the world, them and Goldman Sachs. Last week we reported that as Deutsche Bank's infamous gold manipulator and spoofer and currently star witness for the prosecution in a massive case targeting precious metal manipulation, David Liu admitted spoofing was so commonplace I figured it was okay. Well, it wasn't okay, but since everyone else is doing it, we can see why he was confused. And speaking of everyone else manipulating and spoofing gold, we go to Deutsche Bank straight to JP Morgan, which according to Bloomberg is set to pay a record $1 billion settlement to resolve market manipulation investigations by U.S. authorities into its trading of metals futures and Treasury securities. A penalty approaching $1 billion would far exceed previous spoofing-related fines, because there were others, because they never stopped. It would also be on par with sanctions in many prior manipulation cases, including some brought several years ago against banks for allegedly rigging benchmark rates for foreign exchange markets. Don't even know what that is, but all you have to know is that they are basically corrupt as shit and they don't give a shit about anything. Why is that important? Well, the director of the Treasury, Mr. Steve Mnuchin, just look at this guy. Look how much air he's breathing through that nose, right? Mr. Steve Mnuchin is a former investment banker for Goldman Sachs. His father was a partner there, and Mr. Mnuchin worked there for 17 years, guys. 17 years. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan are the two biggest banks. If JP Morgan is doing this, you know Goldman Sachs is doing this. Manipulating prices, all that jazz. Corrupt, corrupt, corrupt. In fact, let's go to the Goldman Sachs Wikipedia page. When you look at the controversies and legal issues section, that section is longer than the rest of the Wikipedia sections combined for this, company. I mean, let's just go to a few random ones. Let's see. Stock price manipulation. There's one. Goldman Sachs was charged for repeatedly issuing research reports with extremely inflated financial projections for Exodus Communications, and Goldman Sachs was accused of giving Exodus its highest stock rating, even though Goldman knew that they didn't deserve such a rating. Use of offshore tax havens. A 2016 report by Citizens for Tax Justice stated that Goldman Sachs reports having 987 subsidiaries in offshore tax havens, 537 of which are in the Cayman Islands, despite not operating a single legitimate office in that country, according to its own website. The group officially holds $28.6 billion offshore. The report also noted several other major U.S. banks and companies use the same tax avoidance strategies. Of course they do. J.P. Morgan, Goldman Sachs, you name it. Trump even does the same thing, and he's the president of our country, the very same guy who put this douchebag in power, because they're all in on it together. If you think Trump's going to save you and he's playing 12D chess and fighting the deep state, adrenochrome-drinking child molesters, you're a retard. He's not. He's a Zionist, and he's an admitted Zionist. And he does everything he can to suck Israel's cock. That's the truth of it. Joe Biden will do the same thing. Hillary will do the same thing. It doesn't matter who they put in office. They're two sides of the same future digital coin we're going to get, right? And what is the relationship of the Federal Reserve to the Department of the Treasury? Well, the Secretary of the Treasury is the chief international monetary policy official of the United States. The Federal Reserve has separate legal authority to engage in foreign exchange operations. The Federal Reserve's foreign exchange operations are conducted in close and continuous consultation and cooperation with the Secretary to ensure consistency with U.S. international monetary and financial policy. So just like how each state has its own Department of Homeland Security, they have the same goals and the same missions as the Federal Department of Homeland Security. They all work together and they receive grants from the Federal Department. It's all the same thing. These two guys, they work in close proximity, you know what I mean? They might as well be joined at the dickheads with a Chinese finger trap because they're fucking, you know what I mean? So why is that important? Well, this guy right here, who was a former investment banker for 17 years, even reaching chief information officer of Goldman Sachs, during the tenure of all this shit going on, by the way, this guy was here for all this stuff. Corrupt. JP Morgan, corrupt. They're trying to introduce a digital dollar that they can track everything you do. If they don't like what you have to say, people like me, you really think they're going to let me have money? Maybe like, fuck this guy and just turn his chip off. But let me get to this last article, and this is very, very telling, right? This is off Forbes, another bullshit mainstream news article that you can trust because it has that stamp. Donald Trump and the Fed have, quote, entered the free market. The U.S. Federal Reserve, under close scrutiny from President Donald Trump, has made the historic move to pump a staggering $6 trillion of liquidity into the economy since the coronavirus pandemic began. You know what that means? He literally just stuck a sword through your head, your chest, your groin, you name it. He just fucking slaughtered what was left of us. The Fed's extraordinary actions have been mirrored and even exceeded by other central banks around the world as countries seek to offset the economic damage wrought by widespread coronavirus lockdowns. Now, as stocks and currency markets frantically seek direction, Deutsche Bank has warned that this is the end of a free market, branding it a zombie market. Why are we listening to them? Because they're corrupt as fuck. And this very, very same guy, David Liu, who was Deutsche Bank's gold manipulator and spoofer, said spoofing was so commonplace I figured it was okay. Right? That same company or whatever bank is going to give us advice warning us about what's going to happen. There is no such thing as a free market anymore. Deutsche Bank's global head of foreign exchange research, George Saravelos, wrote in a special report titled "The End of the Free Market: Impact on Currencies and Beyond." I should probably read that, and I probably will make a video about it because that sounds like it's one of those documents that when you read it will be very damning. But read this next little section. In a matter of weeks, policymakers have become a backstop for private credit or private sector credit markets at the extreme. Central banks could become permanent command economy agents administering equity and credit prices, aggressively subduing financial shocks. One world banking system, guys. It would be a bipolar world of financial repression with a high real economy volatility but very low financial volatility, a zombie market. The Fed's rapid interest rates cut to zero and its gigantic raft of credit and lending programs easily eclipsed the emergency action taken during the 2008 financial crisis. Never let a crisis go to waste, right, guys? Read this sentence, though. The Fed moved quicker and hit harder, and investors are scrambling to adjust to this new world order. And investors are scrambling to adjust to the new world order. Because that's what it is. People who say, oh, you believe in conspiracies, you're an idiot. No, they admit it. When people say the new world order's coming, yeah, because they say literally the term new world order in their own publications, guys. This isn't about a virus. It's about control. If you don't see that, you're a fucking retard. It's so obvious that you pretty much deserve what you get if you don't do anything to stop it now. Seriously, if you're not out there protesting, holding up signs, boycotting taxes, doing all this stuff, you're not doing anything. You think all I do is sit here and make YouTube videos. It's not all I do. I'm just getting really fucking frustrated because, guys, this is so on the nose and in your face. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Are you going to sit there and be a fucking slave the rest of your life? Are you going to let people like this fucking tell you what to do? Look at this slimy faggot. This piece of shit cocksucker. You going to listen to this guy? Look at this guy. He just looks like a corrupt child molester. I'm not saying he's a child molester. He looks like one. And boy, does he. Fuck, man. Do you really not see it at this point? Do you really not see it? Guys, they want to create a digital currency. Everything will be controlled. Everything. Controlled by the very same people who have been corrupt from the very beginning and constantly get fined, constantly get arrested. It's a revolving door of corruption. Those same people want to control your life and money. This guy wants to control your life and money. Wake the fuck up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake the fuck up. What else can I say? Wake up. Wake up.